The Bristol Buckingham origins begin in 1939 when Bristol suggested to redesign and alter the Bristol Beaufighter to be a medium bomber. The Air Ministry showed little interest in the design, partially due to British policy that medium bombers would be supplied from America, allowing the British aircraft manufacturing industry to focus on heavy bombers. Eventually though, the Air Ministry did send out a request to manufacturers for a design on the condition it be based on a pre-existing design. Thus, for Bristol, work began on the Type 161, which then evolved into the Type 162 Beaumont. In 1940, the Air Ministry issued specification B740, calling for a medium bomber to replace the Blenheim. There seems to be a lack of submissions to this specification. At a similar time, Bristol submitted their Type 162 to the Air Ministry. Type 162 was a decent match for the specification. Construction on a mock-up did start during 1940. A new specification B241 was designed around Type 162. However, the requirement kept changing and evolving. Examples included increasing the speed of the aircraft and the removal of dive bombing capabilities. And thus, with the Type 162 no longer matching, Bristol had to undertake a redesign. The redesign would become the Bristol Type 163 Buckingham. The Buckingham was larger and to be powered by a pair of Bristol Centaurus engines. Issues with the Centaurus engine delayed the project, but on the 4th of February 1943, the Buckingham prototype flew for the first time, minus armament. The second prototype followed shortly, with the inclusion of armament. The power plants for the prototypes was the Bristol Centaurus 4 engines, although production kites had the fitment of Centaurus 7 or 11 engines. The Buckingham was a rather large and heavily fortified medium bomber. It was capable of carrying 4,000 pounds of bombs and a maximum speed of 330 miles per hour with a range of 3,180 miles. Defensive armament was heavy, consisting of 4 forward-firing 303 machine guns, another 4 in a dorsal turret, and then an additional 2 in a ventral cupola. Development trials unveiled some quite serious issues with directional control, which worsened if an engine was lost. This seems to have been fixed with an increase in the area of the tail fins. The first production version appeared in February of 1944. However, by now the aircraft was already outdated. The Havilland Mosquito, which fitted a similar operational profile, was already in service, being able to carry the 4,000 pounds of bombs faster, reaching speeds over 400 miles per hour. The original order of 400 Buckinghams was cut back to 119. The first 54 were completed as Buckingham B Mark Is. However, none ever entered service as a bomber, instead being delivered straight into storage. The remaining 65 were completed as transport aircraft. Known as the Buckingham C1, these versions lost all defensive armament, had a crew of 3 and could carry 4 passengers. The 54 bombers were all sent back to the factory where they were converted to this configuration. As transports, many saw little to no service and were placed in storage. Those that did see service were utilised in services between the United Kingdom, Malta and Egypt. However, in the role as a transport, it was hardly economical, only being able to take 4 passengers. The RAF had better aircraft for such a role, hence the very limited service. 2 Buckingham C1s were converted to take up to 7 passengers by the Transport Command Development Unit. These were known as the C2, however these were the only 2 converted to this configuration. The Buckingham did have the ability to fly further than the Mosquito, and thus it was seen that the Buckingham could be utilised in the Pacific Theatre of War. However, an end to the war meant that this never materialised. The Buckingham wasn't necessarily a bad aircraft. However, the changing nature of the war and the requirements of the RAF meant that by the time it was ready for service, there were aircraft already much more capable of doing what it could do. Hence, the Buckingham had a very short life. With 4 prototypes, the total production numbers came out to be 123 aircraft. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure to go leave a like and subscribe for future videos. In the meantime, keep flying high.